Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I am going to cover module 2 on roadmap to data engineering. So when most people start in data engineering, they think it's all about writing clean Python code or mastering crazy SQL joins. But if you step back, the absolute biggest challenge a data engineer faces is not writing the code. It is figuring out where and how to store oceans of data so that company doesn't go broke and the company's system don't crash. So to understand how modern tech giants like Netflix or Uber handles this ocean of data, you have to realize that a business actually operates on two completely different wavelengths, and we call them OLTP and OLAP. So let's go to the next slide. I will be explaining you what are those wavelengths. So imagine you walk into a massive supermarket and you have got the cashier at the front counter. So every time they scan an item, swipe a card or update an inventory count by one, that is a live counter, live transaction which is happening. So the database which is handling that live transactional data needs to be lightning fast, right? Because a customer is literally standing there waiting to leave, or the customer is waiting in the queue. So that system is called OLTP, which is online transactional processing, right? So its entire job is to run the day-to-day business, handling millions of tiny inserts and updates every single second. Now look upstairs. You have got the store manager who is sitting in the office. The manager doesn't care that someone just bought a single pack of gum 2 seconds ago. The manager is looking at the big picture. They want to run a massive report that scans the last 3 years of sales data to figure out exactly which items sell best during Diwali or which items sells best during Christmas so that they can stock up next year. So that system is OLAP, online analytics processing. Okay. Now let's see the difference between OLTP and OLAP. So OLTP is, we can say that it's for running daily application like supermarket, cashier, scanning, barcodes and all. And on the other hand, OLAP is for aggregating data for decision making. So we can say OLTP is a doer. It lives in the present moment. So every second someone buys a product or someone drops a comment or someone updates their profile, OLTP handles it right now so that business keeps moving. And on the other hand, OLAP is a thinker. It looks at the past data. It doesn't help run the application. It helps to make smart business choices. Now the data structure differences. So OLTP organizes data by rows. So think of a giant spreadsheet where each customer gets one neat row across the page, like their name, address, age, and item they bought. So when a cashier updates your profile, the system only needs to find your exact row and change it. That's it, right? And normalize just means it keeps data cleanly separated in different tables so that there are no accidental duplication in the data. Okay. And on the other side, OLAP organized data by columns. So imagine if you only want to know the total revenue generated this month. So OLAP system doesn't waste time reading names, addresses or ages. It just isolates the price column and reads it all at once at lightning speed. It will be able to answer the question of like the last 3 months sales trends and all. Okay, so here denormalize means it bundles data together in massive blocks, so it doesn't have to waste time combining tables mid-query. Okay, now the transaction volume. So OLTP handles tiny drops of water constantly. That is, millions of people are clicking buttons at the same time. The database has to process these tiny requests in milliseconds, so nobody gets a loading screen. Correct? And on the other hand, OLAP handles massive waves occasionally. So like an analyst might only run 3 or 4 big queries a day, but one single query might force the system to scan 500 million rows of data to calculate total profits. So it takes more time, but it does massive heavy lifting. So we can say that OLTP handles millions of simple, fast reads, fast writes queries which runs in a milliseconds, and OLAP handles fewer, highly complex queries which scan millions of rows. Okay. Now, the next difference is like OLTP keeps current state only, like it updates the data in place, and OLAP maintains decades of deep historical data. So, suppose if you change your shipping address on Amazon today, right? The OLTP database overrides your old address with the new one. It only cares about who you are right now to deliver your package. That is the working of OLTP. And on the other hand, OLAP basically remembers everything. It saves a snapshot of your old address, your new address, and every single thing you have ever done for the last 10 years. So it holds on to the past because history is where the valuable trends are hidden. Okay, so that is some simple differences between OLTP and OLAP. And if I talk about the tools, OLTP and OLAP tools, so in OLTP we has like PostgreSQL and MySQL, MongoDB, Oracle, and Microsoft SQL Server. These are the example of OLTP tools. And OLAP, on the other hand, like we have data warehouses like Snowflake, Amazon Redshift, Google BigQuery, ClickHouse, right? So these are the data warehouses which store massive amount of data, and we can query the data, which takes a lot of time. So suppose you like someone's profile over Instagram or WhatsApp. So that interaction gets saved inside PostgreSQL or MongoDB. That is OLTP. And then our data engineer built a pipeline to extract that data, clean it up, and dump it into Snowflake or BigQuery, which is a OLAP system, so that business teams can analyze it and they can find the relevant information from all the data available. That is OLAP. Now let's talk about the three eras of storage. Okay, how the evolution happened from the past to the present. Okay, so let's talk about the Era 1, which was the traditional data warehouses. So Era 1 started back in 1980s and 1990s with the traditional data warehouse. So think of a data warehouse as a premium, highly organized boutique grocery store. So everything inside it meticulously cleaned, labeled, and placed on perfect shelves, right? So in technical term, we call this schema on write. So this means you can't put data into a warehouse unless it perfectly confront with predefined labels. And because everything was so incredibly organized, your SQL queries run at lightning speed, right? So everyone was loving it. But there was a massive breakpoint. So these data warehouses are insanely expensive to scale. And on the other side, they completely reject unstructured data as well. So if you try to feed a data warehouse raw text file or audio recording or sensor logs, it simply says no to all those kind of data. So that was in 1980s and 1990s. Now go to the era 2. So then came the 2010s. Social media exploded at that time, mobile apps were boomed, and companies suddenly had petabytes of messy, unstructured data, right? So the traditional warehouses which we were using previously completely broke under the weight and the cost. So then entered the data lake. So here data lake basically instead of spending weeks cleaning and formatting data before saving it, data lake allows you to just throw everything into cheap cloud storage like AWS S3 or Hadoop. So you can dump CSVs, JSON files, video recording and log files all in one place. And we call this a schema on read. So here don't worry about structuring it now. Just save it cheaply and we will figure out how to parse it when someone actually needs to read it later. So here it gave companies infinite scale with less spending. But as data engineer quickly found out, there was a massive catch because the lake were so cheap and had absolutely no rules. Companies dumped everything inside without any governance. So very quickly these lakes turned into data swamps. So if you walked into a data swamps, you had no idea which file was accurate or who put it there. Right? Even worse, early data lakes completely lacked ACID transaction. What does that mean? It means if your data pipeline was halfway through writing a massive file and suddenly crashed, so no transaction support, zero data governance, and abysmal performance. So abysmal performance means querying files directly using standard SQL engines that meant scanning millions of scattered raw documents, which led to high latency. So it was taking a lot of time to run the complex queries. Now the era 3, the data lake house. So let's look at the dilemma. Data warehouse were too expensive and rigid, but highly reliable. And data lakes were cheap and flexible, but a total mess. So why choose? Tech companies realized they could merge the two concepts together, creating the modern data lakehouse. So a lakehouse keeps your data sitting on top of dirt cheap, infinite cloud storage, exactly like a data lake, but it adds a smart metadata management layer right on top of those files. So this smart layer enforces strict schema, protects data quality, and brings back those missing warehouse features. So now your data scientist can train AI model on raw images and your business analyst can run ultra fast SQL reports on the exact same data platform. Now let's see as one simple difference between Delta Lake versus Apache Iceberg. So how does a lakehouse actually pull this off under the hood? It relies on modern open table formats. So right now the two undisputed kings of this space are Delta Lake and Apache Iceberg. Delta Lake, which was created by Databricks, introduced incredible features like time travel. Because it logs every single change made to the data, you can write a query to see exactly what your database looked like last Tuesday at 4 pm. And on the other hand, Apache Iceberg, which was built by Netflix, is an open source powerhouse designed for petabyte scalable data. So it abstractly manages files in the background, grouping them and handling schema evolution automatically so your queries stay blindlessly fast even as your data grows to a massive scale. So that was the benefit. So that is the benefit of Delta Lake and Apache Iceberg. So now if you look at the efficiency chart, it becomes completely clear why the entire tech industry is shifting towards the architecture. So a traditional warehouse gives you great performance, but the cost skyrockets exponentially as your data grows. An early cloud data lake keeps your cost flat and low, but your query performance drops off by a cliff. The modern lakehouse strikes the ultimate sweet spot. It leverages cheap storage with smart compute optimization to give you near warehouse performance for a fraction of the price. So that's the cost and performance efficiency over all the areas which we have discussed. So now the strategic architecture selection, which one to choose, right? So as a data engineer, your job is not to just pick the newest, coolest buzzword. Your job is to pick the right architecture for the specific business problem. So let me tell you. So if your company has smaller, highly structured data and your only goal is simple business dashboards, stick to a classic data warehouse. It's fast and easy. And if you are simply archiving raw historical data or system logs that you rarely even touch, drop it into a raw data lake to keep the cost low. Okay, and on the other hand, if you are working at scale and you need to support advanced machine learning plus fast business intelligence reporting, you build a data lakehouse using Delta Lake or Iceberg. So that is a strategy which you can use as per your business problem. So now you know exactly how data storage evolved and why modern systems look the way they do. But once you choose your storage platform, how do you actually arrange the table inside it so they don't turn into chaos? In our next video, we are going deep into the absolute core of data engineering, which is data modeling. So if you found this video helpful, hit that like button, drop your question in the comment below, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the single modeling breakdown. See you in the next one. Thank you, Tata, bye bye.